Well, folks, it was great to sit down today with Konstantin Kissin from Trigonometry. If you haven't heard the podcast, it's fantastic, and Konstantin is really a lot of fun to talk to.
Hi guys, how you guys doing today? You're welcome to a brand new video. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to Ben Shapiro and Konstantin. I don't know, I've never heard about the guy before, but today's my first time of listening to him, and I want you guys to share the experience with me. So apparently he has some interesting takes that we'll be reacting on the channel as we progress with the video. So I don't want to waste your time. Let's get right into the video.
Folks, we're joined by Konstantin Kissin. He's co-host of Trigonometry YouTube show and the author of the best-selling book An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West. Konstantin, great to see you.
Great to be back.
So let's start off with sort of how you've gained a lot of notoriety, which is the anti-woke fight. How did you find yourself in that fight, and why has it become such a big thing?
Well, initially I was a stand-up comedian, and I really wasn't clued into any of what was going on. And then suddenly I just heard people talking about certain groups of people on race and sex as if they're really bad. And I couldn't really work out what that was about. So my friend and Francis and I, we just wanted to find out why it is that this was happening. And Brexit then really lit a fire under this, because I don't know if you know this, but in comedy, there's this idea of like punching down, which is making fun of vulnerable groups. And then after Brexit, and Francis and I both voted Remain, by the way, in that referendum, but suddenly like it was totally okay to suggest that old people who'd voted for Brexit should die on stage for comedians. And I just thought that doesn't really make sense. And so we wanted to find out what was the ideology behind what was going on in our industry, which I think jumped into wokeness a lot earlier than many other industries. We're like way ahead. And then you were at Oxford, and obviously there's a lot of controversy over your activities at Oxford in the anti-woke category. So why don't you tell people about that? Well, that was a speech that I gave a few months ago that went super viral around the world. And really, I was asked to speak about wokeness, but probably like you, I'm kind of getting tired of talking about it. Like I want to get to the post-woke world. And that's why I'm thinking a lot about what is the positive vision that we can offer young people. So when they asked me to speak about wokeness, I was like, look, I'm so tired of this. I don't want to talk to you about this. Let's talk about an issue you guys care about. You say, young people say, you're suffering from climate anxiety. You say that, this is a massive issue that you really care about. But look at what you're actually doing. You're not doing anything. You're just, following in the footsteps of St. Greta of climate change. You're talking, you're scolding. You're not doing anything. And the way to improve the world is to work, is to create things, is to build things. And I gave them some, I think, powerful arguments about how, making poor people in the rest of the world poorer isn't going to get them on board with fixing climate or anything like that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from now, is I think we all know what the problem is with wokeness. It's anti-West, it's anti-merit, and it's anti-truth. Let's talk about why the West is good. Let's talk about why merit is important, and let's talk about why truth.
So one of the things that's happened is that the backlash against, I think, the woke is so strong that it's also carried forward some figures who are very controversial. So obviously Andrew Tate is one of those figures. You and I are talking off air about this a little bit. But people like Andrew have been getting all sorts of notoriety, largely because they're punching back so hard. And I understand the sympathy for that position, but it feels to me like that's also carrying forward some messages that are not what we would traditionally conceive of as sort of within the Western civilized context as what it would mean to be a man. And this carries a danger too. It seems to me that politics in this era has become so radically vacillating. It just feels like a pendulum, but there's no center to the pendulum. You imagine that at a certain point the momentum would kind of give away and it would sort of reach stasis somewhere in the middle. But instead, things are vacillating so wildly that the radicals at each extreme seem to take energy from the radicals at the opposite extreme. And so you end up just not knowing where you are. It feels chaotic.
Well, we live in the age of extremism, and I think that's a big reason for that is social media. Social media rewards and encourages people to say the most ridiculous, outlandish things. Well, Andrew Tate is a symptom. I don't know him personally. I don't have any particular issue with him. But I think if we're talking about, the pushback against the demonization of men and masculinity and so on, what that looks like is encouraging men to be responsible, encouraging men to have families and look after their kids. And I think that's much more, to me, it's never been my aspiration to have lots of cars and to bang lots of hot women. Like I've always thought that, what a man's job is to look after other people and to take responsibility. And so that's the message I'm trying to put out there.
So let's talk for a second about the fact that you wrote a book, An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West. So what is your history? And because you're sort of an outside commentator on the West, and then you're also an outside commentator on America. You've been spending an increasing amount of time in America. So give me your story a little bit.
So I was born in the late Soviet Union. Most of my family were repressed, as we used to say in the Soviet Union. My grandmother was born in a gulag, in a concentration camp for political prisoners. And so a lot of my story is trying to explain to people that many of the things they're now seeing in the Western world didn't originate in the Western world. And that bothers me because most people don't even know where political correctness comes from. So I'm sure you do, but most people in the West don't know that it comes from the Soviet Union. And it never had anything to do with being nice to people and not offending anybody. It was a way of saying to people, what you're saying is factually correct, but it's politically incorrect. And what that meant was it's inconvenient to the party line of the day. My grandfather criticized the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in the late 80s in the Soviet Union, immediately lost his job. His wife was kicked out of her job. And again, does that sound unfamiliar to people in the modern West? You know, so I'm just worried that we are forgetting what made our societies what they are, what made them great.
All right, so you heard the video. So this is what I have to say, right? I feel like a lot of people these days are pushing a narrative that if you don't agree with them, then automatically you are hateful, automatically you are a bad person. But in reality, it's not that. Like, I remember when we were kids, like, we would argue about different kind of subjects. We all had our takes, and if our opponent didn't agree with us, we didn't have to fight about it. We didn't have to get swollen faces about it. What we did was, we did actually argue. They try to fact check each other, but these days it's not like there's a 20-year-old boy in California right now that if he doesn't like what you say, you get deleted out of social media. And what other voice do we have? Social media now has become a tool for everyone to speak their mind. So if it turns into a catastrophe, they turn into a war. Bro, it's not hatred. I don't agree with what you're saying. Here's the fact. Here's the fact. Here's my claims. Give me your claims. You can't just be throwing in words without backup. You don't have any backup for them. You don't have any particular research about these things. And you just throw in the word and you expect me to believe it. I should be able to fact check you. You understand me? As a matter of fact, that's going to be the end of this video. I'm going to say to you guys next time.